Hello and welcome back, my fellow adventurers, monkeys, and gulls, to our exploration of the vibrant world of Asterix and Obelix. Today, we're turning back the clock to the 1990s.
Go back to the 90s!
Music back in the 90s.
The 90s are killing me.
A time of remarkable gaming innovation and the birth of the digital Gaulish escapades on the Sega and the Nintendo. Today, we shall be looking at all the games from 1991 to 1999. Developers took us on unforgettable journeys through the Gaulish villages alongside our beloved characters. Join me as we revisit this era of magic potions, Roman adversaries, and endless adventures. Whether you're a seasoned gamer or a diehard fan of the comics, these games left an undeniable mark. Let's embark on daring missions, await Caesar's legions, and relish the camaraderie that defines Asterix and Obelix. For the first game in our list, we're going to be looking at Asterix, released in 1991, published by Sega for the Sega Master System. It is, of course, like always, based on Asterix. Now, in this game, it's a typical side-scrolling platformer game, where either Asterix or Obelix must navigate through each stage. In most stages, the player must locate a key that will open the door at the end of the stage. In some stages, the boss must be defeated to complete the stage. The game is broken up into 8 different areas, between 1 and 3 stages in each area. The player starts with 3 lives and 3 health points. A health point is lost if the character is hit by an enemy. And a life is lost if all health points are lost or the character falls down a hole. Health points can be obtained by picking up certain items during the game, and when certain bosses are defeated, a heart is obtained. Collecting this heart increases the health capacity by 1 point, and the character can have up to 6 health points. The player has to choose when prior to each stage of playing between Asterix or Obelix. In level 101, the player must choose Asterix. In level 1-2, the player must choose Obelix. Now this game supports 2-player co-op, and in 2-player mode, each player takes a turn and completes the stage. Player 1 plays the game as Asterix, and player 2 plays as Obelix. Now, something fun about this game actually, which gives it a lot of replayability for solo players, is that depending on whether you pick Asterix or Obelix, the stage will actually change, which is a nice touch for such an old game. Now, the difference between the 2 characters is that Asterix controls a bit better, but has less power than Obelix. Obelix, for example, can just destroy blocks with a punch, while Asterix needs his magic potion. Now, it is funny though to see, because last I remembered, I thought Asterix just drank the potions, and now went full terrorist and threw bombs at blocks. Okay. Now, one little small thing that's left about this game is that once you collect 50 bones, there will be a bonus stage which is playable with the dog Dogmatix. In this bonus stage, the dog must jump from bubble to bubble, popping each bubble along the way. A red bubble requires him to jump once, a yellow bubble requires him to jump twice, and a green one, as you guessed it, requires him to jump 500 times. Okay, 3 times, but you get my point, And that's pretty much what the game is about, ladies and gentlemen. It is a typical side-scroller for the era, and personally, I actually did enjoy it. Now, was it a bit frustrating at times? Nah. Too much into the game, I'm gonna get so ragey. It's literally the same loop over and over again.
Five minutes later.
Ah! Was it a good game? Oh yes, I really enjoyed it. It was fun, it was enjoyable, it was fast. I think we would have beaten it in about 2 hours and a half, 3 hours. Sadly, it crashed. And the only negative thing I have to say is that there were a few bugs and glitches, but this of course could be due to the emulator I was playing on. Besides that, Asterix's first adventure on the Sega Master System was very successful. The game was received very positively by most reviewers, it got mainly 9s and 10s, and everyone praised the game for its visuals, animation, and gameplay. The next game we're going to be looking at today is the Asterix arcade game. This classic gem from the early 90s, a barrel of laughs and a ton of fun. The Asterix arcade game was cooked up by Konami in 1992 and is simply titled Asterix. Yeah, no, they didn't spend too much time brainstorming on that one, but hey, what more could we ask for? Now in this game, you get the choice to play as either Asterix or Obelix, and you can even play this game in co-op, which is very fun and definitely my recommended way to play it. What is your mission? Well, it's always the same. Give these Romans a run for their money, beat them up, and travel the world. The game takes you on a journey through Gaul, to the Roman camps, then to Greece, to Egypt, and eventually you end up in Rome. You beat up the Romans, collect items, and enjoy the hilariously Gaulish antics along the way. Now, what makes this game special is the chance to interact with characters from the comics. Now, back in those days, this was very difficult to portray in games, and this is what this arcade game did very well too. If you're a fan of Asterix, this must have been amazing to see these characters spoken to in this 16-bit era. Now, in the game, you'll run into Getafix the Druid, Carcophonics the Baird, sorry if I butchered his name there, and many more quirky personalities from the Asterix universe, which includes Cleopatra, Caesar, and the dog, which I forgot his name. What's the dog's name? I don't remember. I'll put it up there, you'll see. Now, let's talk the controls. The game is a blast to play due to its easy controls. Since it's an arcade machine, it just uses arcade controls, but instead of using multiple buttons, it does only use 2, which I was a bit surprised by. I thought the game would use multiple buttons for multiple attacks or combos, at least that's how I remember other Konami games playing, but in this game you'll just be bashing Romans in with your fist, you'll be using weapons like fish, and you'll be drinking magic potions and eating boars. Now, something that is fun is if you play Asterix, you can even ride Obelix like a trusty steed, which is just a very fun little thing you can do. Now, so one thing I actually forgot to edit in is that in between the fighting, there are some fun bonus stages. My favorite personally was the one with the horses, the Go! 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 Woo! We did it! Horses, the car riding. But there's also one where you unlock barrels for extra points, and then some more, which I didn't get to because the game crashed. Now, visually, the game's graphics are colorful, and they do capture the comic book's essence perfectly. The music itself is also fantastic. And that's pretty much it, I guess, on that front. There's not much I can say because one thing Konami did do is they really did translate all these games very well into a beautiful arcade game that people can play in the arcade, which just made it a lot of fun. Now, finding the Asterix arcade game these days might be a treasure hunt. If you do ever stumble upon it in an arcade or an emulator, do yourself a favor and give it a whirl. It is a hidden gem that does deserve a spot in any gamer's heart. Now, was this game perfect 10 out of 10? No. Now, maybe if I didn't play it myself, I would have been like, yeah, 10 out of 10. However, I have played a lot of Konami beat 'em up back in the day, and maybe my memory is failing me here a bit, but I have to say that out of all the ones I did play, Asterix was the least impressive. Now, again, just like Konami, everything in terms of the actual game is perfect. You know, the sound, the graphics, the gameplay for a beat 'em up. But that's as well where the problems, in my opinion, arrive a bit. As it is an arcade game, and since it only uses 2 buttons, it can get very tedious very fast. Now, due to the game not being too short, it is definitely manageable, and if you play this with 2 people, you'll have a blast, you'll waltz through it. Now, if you play this alone, it can be annoying. It can be very annoying, but I don't really want to blame the game for that, because you can see that the problems that I have with the game mostly have to do with the fact that it is an arcade game. And what I mean with that is that a lot of moves, for example, they put you in animations that you can escape from. Sometimes I was in the middle of a jump and I couldn't move in the middle of a jump, which led to a lot of unwanted damage, which I personally didn't feel was my fault. Of course, the game does become a bit more difficult, and then I did make more mistakes, and then of course, because it's an arcade, you die quite fast. But I do feel that a lot of the damage, at least 50 to 70% of the damage, was undeserved and was annoying. But beside that, again, that's an arcade thing. They wanted you to put in coins. They wanted you to put in money to keep playing this. And if you are playing this without putting money in, and you have a friend next to you, or a boyfriend, a girlfriend, husband, wife, then this is really something just fun to play if you're an Asterix fan. Now, for all of those of you who aren't Asterix fans, you can try another one. I think the other ones are a bit better. I think still the best one they did is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one, which in a future video we might talk about. Wink, wink. But for now, let's leave it at that. So guys, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so for this next game, we will be looking at a 3-in-1 Mega Bonanza in Asterix 1993. It was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Game Boy. It is a side-scrolling action game based on Asterix, of course, and Obelix has suddenly gone missing.
What?
Now, after the Romans confirms that they capture him, you step into the shoes of the brave Gaul Asterix as he embarks on a quest to rescue his fellow friend, Obelix. Now, the gameplay is straightforward and classic for its time, as Asterix, your main goal is to punch and jump your way through various levels, defeating Roman soldiers and bosses along the way. It's a generic side-scroller, which means you'll move from left to right, facing various challenges, collecting power-ups, and battling enemies. Now, it's essential to note that in Asterix, you can only play as Asterix, so there is no two-player co-op in this one. Now, in terms of graphics and sound, it's passable. It tries to mimic some of the styles from the comic. However, personally, I don't necessarily think it captures the feeling well, and the soundtrack does complement the gameplay well. Now, this game, when it was announced, it was received very well by critics, praising the game, with basically some stating the best platformer game to be released this year. Asterix is so challenging that it'll take years to complete. This one could be a real midnight oil burner. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it does pain me to say, and please note that this is, my opinion, but I personally really did not enjoy this game. Now, my main problem with it is, yes, we've had generic platforms and stuff, but I do feel like every single game had a unique Asterix flair. Even the games that were other games and that were skinned Asterix game, as stated in our first part of our video, this game really feels like it was a platformer, and they're like, we just need to put a character in here, what are we gonna do? And they chose Asterix. The game itself, besides having Asterix and Roman soldiers and a very occasional cameo and a magic potion, I don't feel like this game is an Asterix game at all. The main enemies are freaking bugs, fishes, worms, spiders, the things that you'd find in the most generic side scrollers. Not only that, the level design sometimes is a bit confusing, and then on the other hand, this confusion doesn't help with the fact that the levels are just left to right, very simple, straightforward. Now, you might be like, well, if the levels are straightforward, then what can be confusing? I mean that sometimes the game just puts you from left to right, and then all of a sudden there is a hole there, but the whole level you've been going down holes, and then all of a sudden this one hole kills you. They were very frustrating. It was a it was a very frustrating endeavor for me to play. I as well did not finish this. I just didn't have that much fun with it. And to anyone who loved this game, I apologize, but I personally thought so far this was the least enjoyable game I have played in this entire series. So, that was it for Asterix on 1993. I hope you enjoyed this part, and let us continue. Okay guys, so that was it for part 1 of part 2. I know I split this video up into 2 parts, but I really wanted to get a video out for you guys, and it has been taking ages. There were a lot of technical issues as well while trying to record this video, a lot of interruptions, and it just took me way longer than I anticipated, so apologies that the video is a bit shorter. We still have quite a lot of games left in 90, so the next part will be, I would say, at least 30 minutes, so we're going to have a really massively long video once we've done the entire series, which I hope to have finished by December. If you enjoyed the video, I would love it if you guys leave a comment. I'd love some feedback. Now, if you're going to give me feedback of the audio sucked in this one part, I know. But otherwise, feel free to give me some constructive criticism. I do love that all of you watched and commented the previous video. I appreciate that, so thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys on part 2.5. Bye bye.